Canadian community, building the railroad, certainly were given the worst jobs, the most dangerous jobs, the least amount of pay, and so many lives were lost, in that process. There were other incidents related to the discriminatory practices for the Chinese Canadian community here in Canada. Take, for example, I was shocked to learn this history. People who had leprosy, right, were put on an island. We call it the Darcy Island. They were just pretty well just dumped in an island to fend for themselves. Once a month, a ship would go by. There would be boxes of supply just dumped there. Literally, they would have wood delivered there once a month as well, so that the sick can bury the dead. Right? I mean, that's part of our history. That's part of our Canadian history. Pretty appalling, if you ask me. Non-Chinese Canadians were, of course, had access to medical health services, to hospital and nurses and so on, but yet the mistreatment is rampant. Part of our history also segregated children. Chinese children, for example, weren't allowed to go to public school, as an example, so there's also that element of it. It took a very long time for the Chinese community to be able to own property. Once upon a time, we were not allowed to own properties. We were not allowed to enter into certain professions. We were not allowed to live and rent houses with the rest of the community, so we were segregated. Chinatown was born largely with a lot of these clan associations because they started to fundraise and build a place where Chinese Canadians could go and to socialize, to actually live together, and in some places to work really in the same hub. The first stage really took place in the federal arena. Margaret Mitchell, the former MP for Vancouver East, actually brought this issue to the House of Commons. Was the first MP who brought it to the House of Commons, and that was to get the redress for the head tax for the Chinese community recognized in the House of Commons. Now, after many, many years, she took the battle on, and after many years, the community came together, and eventually the Harper administration finally issued an apology and finally issued a redress.
On behalf of the people and government of Canada, we offer a full apology to Chinese Canadians for the head tax and express our deepest sorrow for the subsequent exclusion of Chinese immigrants. Gana Dai Dohi.
Another juncture was, of course, the veterans who actually went to war. They went to war and sacrificed themselves, even though they were not Canadians, were not recognized as Canadians, and did not have the franchise. They fought for democracy, fought for rights, and then in that process, they came back and earned the right for the Chinese Canadians to become Canadians. So that was another juncture which I think was critical. Here, closer to home in British Columbia, the Chinese apology issue really came to a head a few years ago when we were in the legislature and made an official apology. The Liberal government at that time was just going to do a quick fix. They were just going to sort of do a quick and dirty sort of apology, get some headlines, get some photo ops, and be done with it. And of course, myself in opposition, along with community members, will not accept that. So we pushed the government to say, no quick fixes. What you must do is to give meaningful recognition of this apology. And so we began that process. There was a motion that I contributed to writing in the provincial legislature that the government accepted, and then ultimately that was unanimously supported. And I think in that process we also exposed a lot of the discriminatory practices in the history, and then also recognition of the veterans, the railway workers, all the people who really helped build Canada. And I think that was also an important juncture in this history as well, in getting recognition.
Today we express our sorrow and regret for historical provincial government practices that were once considered appropriate. While the governments which passed these laws and policies acted in a manner that was lawful at the time, today this racist discrimination is seen by British Columbians, represented by all members in this Legislative Assembly, as unacceptable and intolerable. We believe this formal apology is required to ensure that closure can be reached on this dark hour in our province's history.